The French Revolution. Even the name evokes images of upheaval, of a society in the throes of radical transformation. From 1787 to 1799, France was a crucible, where the old world order of absolute monarchy and feudal privilege was consumed by the flames of change. This wasn't merely a changing of the guard, a transfer of power from one elite to another. It was a seismic shift, a fundamental reimagining of the very relationship between the governed and those who governed. The French Revolution was a maelstrom of ideas, violence, idealism, and terror. It was a period of profound intellectual ferment, fueled by the Enlightenment's emphasis on reason, liberty, and the rights of man. These ideas, once confined to the salons of Paris, found fertile ground in a society rife with inequality and discontent. The French Revolution was a watershed moment in human history. Its impact resonated far beyond the borders of France, inspiring revolutions and reforms across the globe. The echoes of 1789 can still be felt today in our own struggles for freedom, equality, and justice. To understand the French Revolution, we must first delve into the simmering discontent that characterized French society in the late 18th century. France was a nation of stark contrasts, where immense wealth and privilege existed alongside grinding poverty and deprivation. At the apex of this hierarchical society stood the First and Second Estates, the clergy and the nobility. These privileged orders enjoyed vast wealth, tax exemptions, and a monopoly on power. At the bottom of this social pyramid was the Third Estate, comprising everyone else: peasants, artisans, merchants, and the burgeoning urban working class. The Third Estate bore the brunt of taxation, funding the lavish lifestyles of the privileged few and the costly wars waged by the monarchy. Economic woes, including poor harvests and rising food prices, further exacerbated the plight of the common people. The French peasantry in particular lived in a state of near constant hardship, subject to feudal dues and obligations that had changed little since the Middle Ages. Resentment toward the privileged orders festered within the Third Estate. The disparity between their meager existence and the opulence of the aristocracy was a constant source of grievance, a powder keg awaiting a spark. The intellectual ferment of the 18th century, known as the Enlightenment, provided that spark. Thinkers like John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Montesquieu challenged the very foundations of absolute monarchy and aristocratic privilege. Locke's concept of natural rights, including the right to life, liberty, and property, resonated deeply in a society where such rights were enjoyed only by a select few. Rousseau's emphasis on popular sovereignty, the idea that the government derives its legitimacy from the consent of the governed, further fueled the flames of discontent. The Enlightenment's emphasis on reason and individual liberty provided a powerful ideological framework for revolution. The ideas of these philosophers, disseminated through pamphlets, salons, and even coffee houses, infiltrated every strata of French society. They instilled in the minds of the French people, particularly the educated bourgeoisie, the belief that a more just and equitable society was not only possible, but a right. While the ideas of the Enlightenment were taking root, the French monarchy, under Louis XVI, was teetering on the brink of financial ruin. Years of extravagant spending, coupled with costly wars and inefficient tax collection, had left the royal coffers depleted. Faced with this financial crisis, Louis XVI was forced to make a fateful decision to convene the Estates General, a representative assembly of the three estates, for the first time in over 175 years. The king hoped to extract more taxes from the reluctant nobility and clergy. The summoning of the Estates General in 1789 proved to be a pivotal moment in French history. It provided a platform for the grievances of the Third Estate, who arrived with their long list of demands, including greater representation, tax reform, and an end to feudal privileges. However, the traditional voting system of the Estates General, where each estate had one vote, despite the Third Estate representing the vast majority of the population, ensured that the interests of the privileged orders would prevail. Frustrated by their marginalized voice, the representatives of the Third Estate took a bold step that would forever alter the course of French history. On June 17, 1789, the representatives of the Third Estate, joined by some sympathetic members of the clergy, declared themselves the National Assembly, the true representatives of the French people. This act of defiance, a direct challenge to the authority of the king, marked the beginning of the French Revolution. Fear and paranoia gripped the monarchy. Louis XVI, influenced by his advisors, ordered troops to surround Paris. The people, already on edge due to food shortages and economic hardship, saw this as a provocation. On July 14, 1789, a Parisian mob, fueled by rumors and desperation, stormed the Bastille, a symbol of royal tyranny. The capture of the Bastille, though largely symbolic, was a decisive turning point in the revolution. It demonstrated the power of popular mobilization and emboldened the revolutionary forces. In the countryside, fear and paranoia gripped the peasantry. Rumors of aristocratic plots to hoard grain and starve the people led to a wave of peasant uprisings known as the Great Fear. Peasants attacked chateaux, burning feudal records and demanding an end to centuries of oppression. The National Assembly, caught between the radicalism of the Parisian crowds and the fear of anarchy, moved to quell the unrest. On August 4, 1789, they abolished feudalism, dismantling the seigneurial system that had been the bedrock of French society for centuries. The abolition of feudalism marked the end of the first phase of the French Revolution. What followed was a period of radical social and political transformation, marked by both idealism and terror. The monarchy was abolished, and France was declared a republic. The revolution, however, was far from over. France faced internal divisions and external threats from monarchical powers who feared the spread of revolutionary ideals. In this climate of fear and uncertainty, the Committee of Public Safety, led by the enigmatic and ruthless Maximilien Robespierre, rose to prominence. The Committee of Public Safety, tasked with protecting the revolution from its enemies, unleashed a period of repression known as the Reign of Terror. Thousands of suspected enemies of the revolution, from aristocrats to ordinary citizens accused of counter-revolutionary activities, were sent to the guillotine. Robespierre's Reign of Terror, while brutal, was also a time of significant social and political change. His government instituted price controls, attempted to create a more egalitarian society, and introduced a new calendar and system of weights and measures. However, the excesses of the Terror, including the execution of Robespierre himself in 1794, led to a backlash. The Thermidorian reaction, named after the month of Thermidor in the revolutionary calendar, marked a retreat from the radicalism of the Terror. With the Terror behind them, the French people yearned for stability and order. Out of the chaos of the revolution emerged a new political order, embodied in the Directory, a five-man executive body. The Directory, while more moderate than the government of the Terror, faced numerous challenges, including economic instability, political divisions, and ongoing wars with European powers. It was in this context of uncertainty that a young and ambitious general named Napoleon Bonaparte rose to prominence. Napoleon's military successes abroad, coupled with his political acumen, made him a popular figure in France. In 1799, he seized power in a coup d'etat, bringing an end to the French Revolution and ushering in a new era of French history. The French Revolution, despite its tumultuous and often violent course, had fundamentally reshaped French society. It had abolished feudalism, proclaimed the equality of all citizens before the law, and established a republic based on the principles of popular sovereignty and representative government. Though Napoleon's rise marked the end of the revolution, it also represented a continuation of many of its ideals, albeit under a more authoritarian regime. The legacy of the French Revolution is complex and multifaceted. It was a period of both great progress and unspeakable horror, of idealism and pragmatism, of liberation and tyranny. Yet its impact on France, Europe, and the world was profound and enduring. The French Revolution shattered the old order, sweeping away centuries of absolute monarchy, aristocratic privilege, and feudalism. It proclaimed the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, ideals that continue to resonate in our own time. The revolution's impact was not limited to France. Its ideals spread throughout Europe and beyond, inspiring revolutions and reforms in the years that followed. From the Haitian Revolution, the first successful slave revolt in history, to the Latin American independence movements of the 19th century, the French Revolution served as a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples around the world. The French Revolution was a watershed moment in human history. It was a testament to the power of ideas to transform societies, to the human capacity for both good and evil, and to the enduring struggle for freedom, equality, and justice. the revolution's legacy is not without its critics. Some point to the violence and terror that accompanied it, the instability it unleashed, and the authoritarianism that followed in its wake. Others argue that its ideals were ultimately betrayed, that the promise of equality remained unfulfilled. Yet, despite its flaws and contradictions, the French Revolution remains a pivotal event in the human story. It serves as a reminder that the pursuit of a more just and equitable world is an ongoing struggle, one that requires constant vigilance, courage, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. The echoes of 1789 can still be heard today, in the streets of our cities, in our halls of power, and in the hearts of those who dare to dream of a better tomorrow.